Well, welcome everybody again to another episode of the Minnesota Rackstar podcast, and I am your host, Joe Call, and today I'm joined by none other than my cousin, Josh Vickers. Josh, how we doing today, man?
Doing good. How about you?
Doing well, doing well. Finally got the kids to bed. Actually, one of them still yelling at me, but the other one's sleeping, and things are starting to quiet down around here after a long day of parenting. But yeah, getting things rocking and rolling here, and we'll get right into it right away. Josh, why don't you kind of tell everyone who you are and what you do for work? Because I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, as you said, I'm your cousin Joe, or I'm your cousin, Joe's cousin. Um, yeah, no, been hunting for since I was young. My grandpa and dad got me into it at a young age. Got a wife and two kids. Just kind of like your everyday working man type of thing. As far as my career goes, I'm a product engineer for federal ammunition, so a pretty big ammo company for those not, people who aren't aware of us. So I get to do a lot of cool stuff in the ammo space and around the industry, and yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm always curious to see what you're up to at work, and I know who to blame when I'm shooting rounds off and missing birds. Why I'm not getting them, so that's who I go after every time. It's not the operator, it's the engineer behind everything. So,
Right. That's what.
but well, I don't know what's going on right now with you and your properties, where you're hunting and stuff. What's the latest? Give me some updates.
Not a
You
lot.
getting
Just got
some
all my
rain?
camp. We got a little bit of rain over the weekend, but we still need it. Still in quite a pretty damn dry. Um, just put my all my cameras out the other weekend, and it looks like most of my new food, or not new, but the ones that I worked the soil this spring and planted, they're struggling a little bit. Like kind of sounds like most people in our area, central Minnesota. It's hasn't been too promising looking. I got some stuff coming in, but it's looking kind of bleak on the new stuff. However, I left three food plots in clover, chicory, alfalfa mixes, and those ones I haven't mowed yet. I just did my first round of herbicide this past weekend, and since those ones we let go right away and they got some rain early on, they're actually looking not too bad. Probably going and do a quick mow here before there's a good rain on the forecast. So those ones are looking promising, but the new ones I'm getting a little worried about because the the seed blend we got from Domain is the that mother load blend, and it's kind of like peas, beans, buckwheat, and a few other things mixed in, and got those in the ground. And they got hit with the rain, but then it was dry for 3 weeks, and seems like the weeds might be starting to outcompete in some of the areas. So I'm getting a little nervous that there it might not be as lush and green and have as much tonnage as I was originally hoping. So, but I think I'm gonna wait till that August one to the August, I don't know, 10th mark before I decide if I'm gonna, start from scratch with the Nebraska blend or not.
Yeah, I hear you. Just like most of the Midwest, we're going through a drought right now, and it's tough. We're fortunate enough around here with corn that there was enough ground moisture to get the seed to germinate, and most of the corn is looking pretty good. But there are some fields around here, and I know Travis has a field right behind his house, and I saw a field down the road here where there's corn that is, I mean, you're looking at 3-4 feet tall,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden there's a bunch of bare spots with seed that's just germinating. So that
Yeah.
shows the amount of moisture that was in the soil that got that seed to germinate. And then we had nothing for moisture. And then finally we had like an inch and a half, 2 inches of rain. And then all of a sudden, uh, month after planting, those seeds are finally germinating, which is just
Right.
insane. I just went and looked at my plot today, Josh, and I have beans that are knee high, and I have beans that are just finally sprouting from that rain
Yeah.
we had the other week. So yeah, it looks pretty ugly, but the way I look at it is, especially in those bean fields, you're gonna have some green beans in there. Once the season starts, if they're just
Yeah.
germinating right now, you're gonna have some of that lush green, beans coming up that those deer are gonna enjoy.
Right.
I did put up a electric fence solar panel around my beans, and it's been doing a pretty good job. But as things grow up, they kind of ground out the wire and kind of drain that battery a little bit.
Yeah.
So there was a couple deer that got in there. I could tell some were nipped off, but it's looking pretty good for the most part. One thing I did do is I got about a, I don't know, a half acre, quarter acre clover plot that I put in comeback kid from Domain. It's a mixture of clovers and alfalfa, which I've had a lot of deer on in the past. And I left it go last year. I didn't spray it. Um, and I went out there the other day knowing that if it didn't bounce back after I mowed it, I was going to till it up anyways and plant some type of brassica mix in there
Go
here in a
get
couple
the
weeks.
nitrogen back.
So I went out there, just did a little trial run, see what the mowing was going to do to it, and we got a little rain after I mowed it, but that thing is completely brown right now. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just brown as all get out. Yeah, so um, I'm not expecting it to come back. I didn't really expect it to come back because of the drought, but I'm probably going to work that up and put brassicas in there and then kind of move that comeback kid plot to a different spot. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know with the drought. I think your best bet for the most part is letting it go, unless, like you said, if you know you got a good chance of rain coming up, then
Hmm.
you could go ahead and knock those weeds down. But yeah, my plots, some are looking pretty good, and some of them not so good. And I know that's the same for most of us out there in the
Yeah.
Midwest right now.
Yep. Yep. Back on the germinating, I planted some of the domains incognito, and I have some like you kind of knee high, which is looking pretty good, and some stuff it looks like it just germinated, just like you were saying. I was kind of laugh. I'm gonna hit it with some nitrogen before the next rain too, but
Yep.
typically in the past by now it's at least head high from. They've had really good success with it, and this year no moisture, it's not looking nearly as good. But in my eyes, as long as it doesn't need to be 12 feet where I'm planting it. I just need it to be 5 to 6 feet, just something for a little bit of cover to get in and out of the stand. And if I have to crawl, I'll crawl.
Yep. Oh yeah, the joys of food plotting in a drought year. How about
Yeah,
your
just
buddies?
I
They
I
sending
think
any? Go ahead.
I was gonna say just imagine being a farmer like Travis.
Yeah, no doubt, right?
Oh.
Yeah. Buddy, sending you any pictures yet? Some good bucks at all?
Mm, no, for the most part, there's been a couple decent bucks that from my buddies, but I got one decent one on camera so far, but nothing eye popping yet. Seems pretty slow. I know most of my buddies are just starting to get their cameras out now, and normally that's a like, some at least some good intel for at least the area, what things are doing, what they're hitting. It seems like I did go glassing last night, and it did seem like there's a little bit on alfalfa from what I could see, but a lot of them were in the beans yet. And, in the
Yeah.
bean fields, pretty at least more mature bean fields. It seemed like to be were the most ones that had the most deer in it.
Yeah. I know the other day I was driving home from Wisconsin and man, I think it was I don't know what time did I send you guys that message, like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. There was just deer out everywhere. I actually saw a guy on the side of the road with his spotting scope out, and I'm sitting there looking, trying to see what's going on. And my wife's
See what
asking me,
he's
"What are you
saying.
doing?" I'm
Yeah,
like, "There's got to be a big buck out there somewhere."
yeah. Suppose
But
you started thinking
yeah,
about getting a Wisconsin tag again.
yeah. We just started working with Tacticam this year, and I put up the reveal on a property, and man, is it nice having that intel coming in and
Mhm.
seeing what's out there. And we got a property. Most of the properties I hunt, the bucks really don't show up till October, which is perfectly fine with me. But every now and then you see something come through. It's just a matter of the bears not getting at the cameras and destroying them. That's always my biggest fear.
Yeah, I haven't had too much.
Um, let's dive a little bit into your hunting career here, Josh. Why don't you kind of give everybody a little background, kind of like where you started as a hunter and kind of where you are now, because you've taken a lot of nice deer. You've hunted in state, out of state, and you've been, pretty successful here lately. And just kind of let everybody know, kind of how you've evolved as a hunter. And obviously things don't just happen overnight. I mean, you got to learn
No.
things as you go. There's people there that you listen to, all that good stuff. But just kind of let people know like how you've become as successful as you are right now.
Yeah, I guess first I'll kind of start with my upbringing around it. I grew up obviously, our side of the family, which would be my maternal side, my mother's side, and I all of you guys hunted, and I was around, some of the hunting camps with you guys, and you and John and some of our older cousins. It's kind of as a little bit younger, you get to come back and see what you guys were up to, and that was always kind of cool. But I would say the biggest impact on me starting out young was my grandpa and my dad. Both big time hunters. They were both, pretty accomplished in their own right. My grandpa's, he's put, quite a few nice deer on the ground. And, so, growing up, watching them two go on hunting trips and coming back with bucks in the bed of the truck, that was always something that kind of, that's what really lit the fire for me. And so I was, fortunate enough to have them start me out. As soon as I was 12, I was in the woods, chasing deer. Now, granted, kind of fed me to the wolves a little bit, you could say, but I think that helped me out. I can still remember my first buck. My dad put me in a little ground blind, and not far from the house, but my mom and dad grew up had the house on the river, so pretty good movement just naturally there. And I remember that first buck that I shot. He came in and he's in here. He's over here. I actually can't see him on all. Just a little 7-pointer. But that was, the one that really got me going. I remember when he came in, I just remember thinking that thing was the biggest buck I'd ever seen. I told my mom after I shot it, I told him, I shot a monster. We go out there and it's whatever it is, 50 inches or 40 inches, this little basket 7. But no, I probably shouldn't say this because you're not supposed to do this, but for safety, my dad and grandpa would give me a walkie-talkie, and they'd let me know when it's time to come in and come out, when I'm 12. And I was in line of sight, so everything was legal. But, we had, if you saw a doe, it was, mom. And if you saw a buck, it was dad. And if you saw a real big buck, it was grandpa. And I remember I got on that walkie-talkie. I just shot grandpa. So I always wondered if anybody else had the intercoms on and thinking I shot my grandpa and hoping day of deer season. I was 12, so I was 18 years ago now. I'm 31 or
Yeah.
19 years ago. But so yeah, they got me going, and I just remember, my dad and grandpa coming home from Montana with big muleys in the bed of the truck, or my grandpa coming home from Iowa with just these mammoth whitetails, and I was like, holy moly. And so that's what really got me going at a young age. And my dad got me my first bow when I was 14, and I think I shot a buck my second year bow hunting when I was 15. I shot a little 8-pointer, and from there on out, I was pretty much hooked on bow hunting. I did have a little hiatus in college when I thought I was going to be a waterfall hunting guide and chasing ducks all over. I kind of put deer on the back burner and hunted waterfall quite a bit, and slowly shifted back once I found out I had a lot better opportunities at killing big deer than killing a limit of mallards back here at home. So that quickly shifted. And from there, I don't know, I shot my first big one in like 2015, and that lit the fire for like real technical style hunting, I guess you could say. And pretty much from there on out, I've been hunting whitetails as much as I can. Like you said, I travel quite a bit, so I'll hunt in the Dakotas, Wyoming, Montana. I'll hunt all over any chance I can get a tag. And now it's whenever my wife lets me and the kids are being good. So
Yeah, you got to play those cards too. So speaking of out of state, like, how did you decide, hey, I want to start going out of state hunting?
I think there's always that ambition from a young age, but the biggest part was, and I think rings true for most guys, because I see it with friends and acquaintances that I know and you communicate to. It's the fear and the hurdle of learning something new, and being far from home, and not having that kind of that safety net of, oh, I can just drive home tonight. And so I know a lot of guys struggle with that. And thankfully I have a couple really good friends back at home that kind of got my foot in the door, and they showed me the ropes a little bit, and then from there on I was just kind of hitting it hard.
Yeah, it's something like you said, you get comfortable and you get in a groove and you just do what you're accustomed to
Yep.
doing. Um, if I could push rewind, before I got married, before I had kids, I know for a fact that I would get out of state a lot more,
Yeah.
than what I have been here recently. I get out and go to South Dakota. I got a few places I want to get to yet. I've been out to Wisconsin before and some good counties out there, but I highly, highly, highly encourage everyone out there, male or female. Um, if you got an opportunity to get out of state and go hunting, it doesn't matter what state you're in, get out and go.
Mhm.
And just like you said, learn new things, challenge yourself. I know, Josh, you have been out hunting um, public land out of state. You went by yourself. You kind of had an idea where you're going, and you went out there and you ended up meeting somebody that owns some private out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's happened a couple times actually where, you just kind of run into the right people, and obviously you got to be, you know, a good steward of the land and the accesses and what you're doing. But yeah, it seems difficult, but you hunt out there enough and you'll run into people that are nice. And, I've hunted some great properties now for free, not paying. People just said, yeah, come on over and hunt my place. And, it's paid off and been pretty fruitful over the years. But it's still hard. It's not, some of these states have such good public land access that it's hard not to want to sneak over what's over the next hill on the next piece of public too. Maybe that's a if I have any advice for people, it's don't feel like you're locked in on one thing. If things aren't going your way, like and you have the flexibility, go drive an hour away. Find something that's hot and fresh. And I feel like that's what I've had pretty good success on the last few years. Is I don't necessarily feel like I'm locked into one specific property anymore. I like even back here at home, you can burn out a property and or not burn it out. I mean, you can do that. You can run deer off, but you can get burnt out from hunting the same thing and kind of get stagnant. Well, that's, I think for me, anyways, it's get out and go hunt somewhere new and get some fresh eyes on a new sight and scenery and kind of you know keep your fire going. I always I tell my wife all the time, you can't pour from an empty cup, and I see it with my buddies all the time that you can get pretty burned down through the season, especially if you're trying to shoot like an upper echelon type of deer. And it can be a struggle because big bucks just don't run by you very often. And you kind of it's got to be a equal parts of a little bit of luck and a lot of good decision making and priority making, in my opinion. That's the way I look at it. Kind of a
Yeah, no,
long-winded conversation and a little bit of a derail there, but
no, you're
stuff I
exactly
think
right.
about.
I have some permission properties that I hunt, and I have some of my own properties. And in all honesty, I mean, I don't know. I guess you could say it both ways. You can never have enough properties, but it is tough to hunt a lot of properties.
Oh
You know what I
yeah.
mean? But like
Well,
you
yeah.
said, all of a sudden, last year I was throwing a curveball. I had a great property that I was able to hunt, and I thought for sure I was so optimistic that I was going to shoot a nice deer, or at least see a nice deer. And I'm talking the property around where this is at. I mean, you got a chance of shooting a 150, 160, 170 plus deer. I know a 190 that's been shot around that area.
Hmm.
And I'm out there and I'm running cameras and I'm not seeing anything. And I'm wondering what the heck's going on. Well, here I take a day off work, early November, and at 9 o'clock in the morning, here comes a pack of eight timber wolves. And
Yep.
so I mean, what's the point of hunting there? So then you go to a different property, and that's what's nice about
Hmm.
having, plan A, B, and C. But
Yeah.
exactly like you're talking about out of state, having multiple options. So where do you find your information, Josh, when you say, okay, I'm gonna go hunt this state? Like, where do you do your research to find out, where you want to go and the tags and what's available and when you have to apply by? How's that process work?
I guess for me, a little bit of e-scouting and just dropping a bunch of pins. Before I had kids and I had a little bit more time, like I would take summer trips out there a month before the season, and I would just run to all these properties, and if they look good, spend an evening there glassing. Where legal, some of these pieces of public hunting, like walk-in access stuff, you can't go on until opening season date, for instance. But yeah, just driving around and kind of checking pieces off checking properties off the list or keeping them on the list and then drilling it down from there and kind of heading out there, when that opening trip, not necessarily opening day, but opening trip and spend a good day there. And if you feel like you're in sign or seeing deer and some of the, some of the stuff that I've hunted is more, open rolling hills, in like the Dakotas and stuff like that. And you can normally glass pretty well. I mean, you're not going to see every deer, you're not going to see every buck, but you can get a pretty good feel off the bat, at least, in my sense. And maybe that's hurt me over the years because I left properties too early, um, but just kind of run until you find deer and sign of what you want. You know, I'm not necessarily, I wouldn't say, I'm like a trophy hunter. I mean, I am, but like I'm looking for like a solid 130 most of the time. If I see a 130 or 140, it's for sure gonna get an arrow flung at it, until I feel like I got a few more of those on the wall. Um, so those ones aren't as difficult to come by as say, a guy chasing booners. So that probably opens up a few more properties than me, but I've seen a lot of big deer hunting out of state. I've seen a lot of them, and they're in state too. And I think don't want to put like the emphasis on hunting out of state, but even in your own state, don't be afraid to drive an hour, 2 hours. At least for us, Minnesota's a big state, and there's properties all over Minnesota that are good and hold deer. And I still feel like there's parts of Minnesota that are get a little bit overlooked. So without shedding too much light on before my buddies, I'm gonna have 18 text messages saying, "What the hell are you talking about?" All that stuff for. Uh,
Yeah, I hear you. It's it's
but
it's it's
there's
tough to
local
hunt
stuff
here.
where I live. That's good. There's big pieces of public in Minnesota. And there's lots of room for hunters and lots of room for deer. You gotta be smart. I would say that's a big thing. And I know the rave is go deep into public land, and I don't know that that's always the case. I think just hunting smart and being good at observing, where other people are going, where they're not, and stuff like that.
Well, I know, I think it was a couple years ago, my brother was hunting some public and he brought a friend with to go hunt and my brother went, towards the back and his buddy was hunting like almost right next to the parking area. And I
Hmm.
think he saw like 13 deer that first morning. Like just
Yeah.
right next to the parking area. Like you said, I mean, you don't
Yep.
necessarily have to go deep. You have to be in the right spot, and it depends on the time of year. You look at the rut. I mean, every spot's a good spot, when it comes to rut time. But
Yeah.
you talked about the state and having so much public land. We do have a lot of public here, and
Hmm.
I had a conversation with a retired conservation officer, and he he talked about how the state of Minnesota provides lots of opportunities for people to get out and go hunting. Now, two things I want to ask you here, Josh. Um, being you have kids and whatnot. Um, Back in the day, you and I were the same. You could not hold the firearms until you were 12. You had to wait. Now they've
Hmm.
bumped that age down. What is that age now?
For rifles or for gun hunting?
Anything to go hunting. Is there
I
is
thought
there
it
an
was
age limit?
no. I think it's still 12 for big game, um, but turkey, waterfowl, and I think small game. There's younger age restrictions. I
Okay.
know turkey
And I
and
think
waterfowl for sure you can go younger. I don't know about the big game. I haven't polished up on the
okay,
regs on
because I think big game. I know for sure 10 years old. If they're with a
it.
guardian or
Hmm.
whatever, they can be out there and hunt.
Yeah.
Um, and I know you took your son out this year turkey hunting and stuff. Like, what's your thoughts on that? Are you pro? Are you for lowering that age, keeping that age down there, or let's just say big game. Okay, let's just
Hmm.
say it's no longer 12. You can go out earlier. What's your thoughts on that?
I guess I don't have too strong of an opinion one way or the other. I guess when it the way I look at it is, hopefully the parents are doing the due diligence, and I'm all about having a great experience. That for instance, I took my son turkey hunting this year. He just turned 5 this summer, so he was like almost 5 when we went. But we practiced. I made sure he could shoot. I wanted it to be a close shot. I think you can turn kids off right away by having a poor experience, and you know when I look at gun season, and I'm not for moving the gun season up, but we do have an early youth season. It cannot be the weather isn't always the greatest in November. We know I like piss poor weather, but I can promise you my 5-year-old, he's not going to last very long. And if it's cold and snow or sleet. So I just, my main point would be is the overall experience for that individual and keeping them hooked. And so I feel like the younger you go, the more risk you have with making it a poor experience. And if the adult, the guardian per se, isn't doing this due diligence, or he or she's due diligence to make sure that that young of a kid is shooting properly, shooting accurately, you know doing the right things ahead of the season, I just be afraid that you'd risk um having a poor experience for that young individual.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you anymore. And that's one thing I think about too with my kids, and I really want to teach them, you know, the importance of safety first.
Hmm.
Um, even with shooting a gun, all of a sudden you introduce them to a caliber of gun where all of a sudden they feel that recoil of the gun and they're like, nope, I
Yep.
don't want anything to do with this anymore. Like you said, there's so many variables there where you could turn them off, which you don't want to. You want to make it the best experience possible.
Yep.
But the other thing that I really liked about back when it was, you had to wait till 12 was I just, to me, and this is my own personal feelings and thoughts, is that I when I was 10, when I was 11, and even younger than that, my mom and dad always brought me with, and all my siblings with when they were out hunting, and you just couldn't wait to do it. So when that opportunity finally came, it just felt
Hmm.
like I appreciated it so much more. You know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean? As I got older and I had to wait, no, you can't do this yet. You can't do this yet. You're too young.
Oh
And then
yeah.
also you finally get that opportunity. It was just amazing. I'll never forget that feeling I had of trying to sleep the night before, and just thinking about the deer that I was going to see and all that good stuff. To me, it just made me feel like I appreciate hunting a whole lot more, being I had to do my time, in the minor leagues and wait to get up to the big leagues.
Yeah.
And when I hit 12 years old, it was my time to shine. So I think
Oh
there's
yeah.
something there to be said about that. But like you said, if the parents are doing a good job and they feel that their child is right,
Yep.
it's up to them to make that call.
Yep. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I guess I wouldn't say, I'm for lowering it. I would probably be a proponent to keep it at 12. But, who am I to say if a kid is ready, he's ready. So, I don't want to make it sound like I don't think somebody younger than they should, be not be doing it
Right.
because, just because of their age. Um, it's kind of my two
So
cents.
that's good. No, that's good. I like that. So we got about a couple minutes here left, Josh.
Yep.
The biggest topic here in Minnesota right now is crossbows. Okay. What are your thoughts on crossbows and the new regulation where anyone can use a crossbow throughout the entire archery season?
Yeah, it's a sensitive subject. uh, I guess I would say that um, I don't I don't feel that crossbows um, should be legal for the entire archery season. And I know that there'd be crossbow guys saying, well, vertical bows shouldn't be legal the whole archery season either. I understand that, but I've shot them. I understand, they're you can't argue that they're more accurate. It's just that's the plain truth. They're more accurate. You can put them on a rest. You can do a lot more stuff, to increase hunter harvest success. Um, I'm not saying people shouldn't use them if you can't draw a vertical bow, if you got some like a handicap thing where it just makes it more accessible for you to get in the stand. And I understand that I'm not anti crossbow for people to stay out of the woods, but I think for anybody willing and able, I think a vertical bow would be just fine for the whole archery season. Um, I'm trying to put my thoughts together here where I'm at. I've thought about this a bunch, but it's hard to get it all in a good way. It's obviously not a shotgun. It's not a rifle, but there's something to be said that, the archery vertical bows, and especially, traditional bows, the more primitive you get, the harder it gets. And that's why most archery seasons are longer, because it is more difficult. So when you introduce the crossbow to the full up archery season, my greatest fear is that, the Minnesota deer herd is gonna suffer more than the pressure, the individual pressure, at first, just from spots. There's definitely gonna be more guys hunting. I've heard of it. I know people. Oh, I'm gonna shoot, get to hunt all season now. So I've heard it. It's just we kind of got to wait and see what happens to the herd, and if it really sticks or not. I know some guys are saying from some of these other states where it's been legal that, it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect it, but I don't know if I believe it or not yet.
Yeah, a guy would have to pull up the numbers online with those states and see and compare from the previous years
Yeah,
on what the success rate is.
yeah.
Um,
But I think
like
it's hard.
you said,
Let's say I think it might be hard because how many guys are switching from vertical to crossbow, and if the game and fish or the DNR or whatever the conservation agency is in that state doesn't do an adequate job of, or not adequate, but a detailed question of the hunter harvest. If they just say archery season tag gets filled, how are they going to know if, say a state shot $10,000 a piece? Well, how many more were attributed to crossbows versus
right?
you know vertical bows, compounds?
Yeah, and I actually listened to a really good podcast the other day, and a couple guys were debating the crossbow thing, and one was for it, and the other one was against it, and
Mm-hmm.
you weren't going to change either one of their minds, and that's probably the way it's going to be, for everyone. But the side that obviously, like, there's a reason why they had crossbows legal for people over the age of, what was it,
65
60?
or
Yeah, yeah,
65,
yeah.
one of the two. It might be
Yep.
60. Oh, yeah.
And people who had disabilities. There's a reason why they had that
Mm-hmm.
legal for them, because it's easier. It
Yeah,
is easier, and the reason why the archery season is as long as it is because it's difficult. It's
yeah.
difficult to harvest a deer with a compound bow, longbow, whatever you're using. It is extremely difficult. Even with the upgrades that they've made with the bows, it
Mm-hmm.
is extremely difficult. Um, but so I'm kind of the same with you. Like, if maybe this is a little extreme, but if in my mind, and like I said, if you use a crossbow, I don't care. You use whatever you want. It's legal. Do whatever you want. In states that allow baiting, go for it. It's legal. Whatever. Do whatever
Right.
you want to do. I'm not criticizing anyone, but my thoughts are, it, like I said, maybe it's a little extreme, but if you have a separate season for firearms and muzzleloader,
Mm-hmm.
then why isn't there a separate season for compound, archery, longbow, traditional, and then
Right.
your crossbow? Like, in my mind, there should probably be a separate season. If there's not gonna be a separate season, well, then allow firearms, deer, and muzzleloading season too, because that's the way I kind of see it. Um, I bought my father-in-law a crossbow a couple years ago. He helped me build my garage. He wouldn't accept any money, so I bought him a crossbow, and I said, "You're gonna come hunting with me." And the first time I shot that bow, it was a bullseye, I think at about 60, 70 yards. You know how many times I've hit a bullseye at 60, 70 yards with my Parker? My compound, like,
Hopefully a lot.
yeah, no, and I've never drilled, that
Right.
that bullseye at that far, and we backed it all the way out to 100. It's insane how accurate these things are.
Yeah.
Back in the day,
Yeah.
they say they weren't as accurate, but now, I mean, you can drive tacks with that thing, and to me, that's a whole different level. And
Yeah.
um, I mean, we can say whatever we want, Josh. What it comes down to is the people that make these rules and regulations, and
Mm.
that's all that matters in the end.
Right. I know. Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, but no, it is what it is, and you got to play the cards you're dealt, and go with it, and just
Mm-hmm.
make the best of it, and keep moving on. Like I said, we don't criticize or look down upon anyone that's going to use crossbows this year, and I'm going to keep challenging myself. I'm a type of guy where, in all honesty, when when I was in, elementary, I would pick some of the people to be on my team that weren't the greatest athletes because I like challenges, and that's why I like bow hunting because it's a
Yeah,
challenge.
I agree. I
But
mean, I like using guns too. Don't get me wrong.
oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And in all honesty, I might use a crossbow late season if I don't have a doe on the ground or something. I might pull out the crossbow and go get a doe. Being that there's plenty around. Um, but I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell, I guess. But
Right.
Josh, anything that you want to add before we wrap things up here? Any topic, anything, any shout outs, anything that you want to go over here before we close this book?
Yeah. How many minutes we got left? Because it could get long winded.
I thought it was 30, but we're going on 36 minutes, so we're still going.
All right.
So go
Well,
for
I
it.
guess my if I was had to say one thing or something I think about pretty frequently in this space in terms of hunting whitetails or mostly anything is, you know, there's been a lot of new onset hunters, or maybe not even, I wouldn't even call them new onset hunters, but it seems like to me that the last 4 or 5 years there's a lot more guys who went from just, the traditional deer camps to I'm going to be a hardcore big buck killer that haven't killed a lot of big bucks. I don't know if that feels true to you too, but
Yeah.
it everybody wants to shoot a big buck, and trust me, everybody, and I do too.
Yep.
And I've shot some nice deer, but I haven't shot like anything world class. You can see these. I got a handful of those behind me. The 110 inches, the 120 inches, and I got a handful up to 160. But you know, don't I see so many guys that just want to go out and they hold on and they pass, and they're passing, in my opinion, really nice deer that I'd probably be happy to shoot, like that 130 class, and they're holding out for super megas, and I just don't know that the skill set's always there. And so I just would like to remind people, it's okay to climb the ladder and kind of build it up, because guess what happens when that first big one does come in front of you? Your heart starts pumping pretty hard, and I kind of feel like you got to earn your stripes a little bit. And so I would just be one thing that I would recommend to people is, don't be afraid to shoot, decent bucks. And to be honest, most people, when they see a 130, a 120, even a 115 walking through the woods, for most people, it's probably one of the bigger bucks they've ever seen on hoof. And it's a great deer. I listen to a fair amount of podcasts, and I consume quite a bit of content, because I'm always looking for that, little nugget of information or that little nugget of tech stuff. So I listen to guys like Tony Peterson and Andy May, and some of those guys that are, kind of, it seem like they're kind of growing in popularity now, but I think they're growing in popularity because they're kind of like the blue collar, and they've earned their stripes, and they're, they kind of do it the right way, and they don't shame, and those guys have killed a pile of deer, and they've killed a lot of big bucks, but they've killed a lot of bucks, in the probably the 110 to 130 range too, and they're always happy. So just I can't stress enough. Don't be afraid to pull the trigger. If it's your biggest buck, I say kill it.
Yeah, and I would agree. I can't remember who it was. I just heard this the other day. I think it was Mark Drury. He said, "Shoot what your heart desires."
Yeah, if it makes
Like
your heart
that's
pump, go for it. That's
yeah,
kind of my rule of thumb now. If it gets my heart
exactly.
going, it's a good chance it's getting an arrow or a bullet flung in its direction.
People ask me all the time, "Is this a shooter? Is this a shooter?" You decide what a shooter is. I'm not
Yeah,
deciding for you what a shooter is. When you see that
right.
deer come in and your knees start knocking, you can watch some of my videos on YouTube after I shoot a deer. There's a couple videos I can hardly even talk. There's one video I had to sit down and almost hang onto the tree. I was shaking so bad. That's what a shooter is right there. And one of
Right,
them hangs on
exactly.
my wall here. I don't even know if he broke 100 inches. I mean, it's just a really nice,
Yeah.
heavy
Yeah.
8 pointer that, was around that 200 pounds field dress. But that's what got me going. And that's what I considered was a shooter. And I went for it. The other thing, too, to go along with that, Josh, not only bucks, shoot some does. Shoot
Oh
some
yeah.
does.
Oh
If
yeah.
you're just starting, even with people who are just gonna be starting with crossbows now, shoot some does.
Go,
Get that
go out
feeling
opening
going, that
weekend and
adrenaline
pack them
going.
up.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
Yep. I
But
mean, I've killed deer with my bow, and I still don't feel like I'm 100% proficient. I've probably killed more than most people. And
yeah,
I'm still trying to get better and work on getting through the moment. I've been pretty lucky to get a little bit of ice in my veins at the moment of truth, but But when I first see those deer, my heart's always ticking.
When you decide that I'm gonna
Hmm.
shoot this deer, doesn't matter what it is, things get real in a hurry. You
Oh,
know,
big time.
it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if it's a doe or a buck, like it's game on, and all of a sudden the blood
Mhm.
starts flowing, and that's what you need to experience. That's why you can't frown upon people shooting does. I mean, or yourself shooting a
No.
doe, because when that
Yeah.
moment of truth comes, you got to execute. I got a video that's going to come out here hopefully in the near future. I wanted to make the video um, this past spring when we went shed hunting, but I had a little incident last year when I decided I was going to shoot a doe, and it was on the last day of the season for myself. Um, and let's just say when I hit the release on my bow, there was a big bang in the stand, and we'll leave it at that. You guys are gonna have to tune into another time, and maybe do a little podcast on that hunt, or I'll get that video rocking and rolling. But let's just say the doe stood there and looked at me, wondering what the heck just happened, and she wasn't the only one wondering that, because I was wondering the same thing. What the heck happened? just
I'm
just
only
because
laughing
you
because I know
decide,
the
hey, I'm gonna
story.
oh man, just because you decide you're gonna shoot something doesn't always mean that it's gonna go down. But well,
Yeah.
Josh, thanks for joining me today. I want to thank all of our sponsors out there: Arctic Shield, Domain Outdoor. You guys have been with us here from the start. We can't thank you guys enough. Fourth Arrow Camera Arms, you guys are awesome, and then also Tacticam this year. We really appreciate everyone else out there listening, watching, all that stuff. The more you guys, support us, the more content we can bring you. So make sure you like and subscribe all our stuff we're putting out there. Not only does that help motivate us, but it helps motivate our partners to continue working with us, and we really enjoy doing what we do. Once again, Josh, thanks for joining me tonight, and everyone have a good night.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe.